Captain Jake Morrison sat in the green room backstage wiping sweat from his hands. He had fought alien armies across 3 star systems, but nothing made him more nervous than appearing on television. The bright lights and cameras always felt more dangerous than enemy laser fire. 5 minutes, Captain, said a young woman with a clipboard. She smiled at him. Danny is really excited to have you on the show tonight. Jake nodded and checked his uniform one more time. The gold medals on his chest caught the light. Each one represented a battle won, a colony saved, or a mission completed. The biggest medal was for the Battle of Titan VII, where his ship had held off an entire Zephyrian fleet while civilians escaped. The studio audience was already cheering as Danny Collins finished his opening jokes. Jake could hear them through the thin walls. Collins had been hosting Midnight Among the Stars for 15 years. His show was broadcast to every human colony from Earth to the Outer Rim. Tonight, 3 billion people would be watching. And now, Collins said from the stage, please welcome the hero of Titan VII, Captain Jake Morrison. Jake walked out, onto the stage. The lights were even brighter than he remembered. The audience stood up and clapped. He waved and sat down in the guest chair next to Collins's desk. Captain Morrison, welcome to the show, Collins said with his famous grin. How does it feel to be the most famous person in human space? It feels strange, Danny, Jake replied. I'm just doing my job. There are thousands of brave men and women out there doing the same thing every day. Come on, don't be modest. You saved 2 million people at Titan VII. The whole Zephyrian Empire was coming for that colony, and you stopped them with just one ship. Jake shifted in his chair. He didn't like talking about the battle. Too many good people had died that day. We got lucky, Danny. The Zephyrians made some mistakes, and we took advantage of them. Collins leaned forward. I heard there was more to it than luck. My sources tell me you found something out there. Something that helped you win the battle. Something the military doesn't want people to know about. Jake's stomach dropped. Collins wasn't supposed to know about that. The discovery on Kepler 442b was classified at the highest levels. Only a few dozen people in the entire human military knew the truth. I don't know what you're talking about, Danny, Jake said carefully. Oh, come on, Jake. Can I call you Jake? We're all friends here. Collins smiled, but his eyes were sharp. I'm talking about the artifact. The thing you found on that dead planet before the battle. The thing that gave your ship new weapons. The studio audience was quiet now. They could sense something important was happening. Jake felt trapped under the bright lights. How did Collins know about the artifact? Who had talked? Danny, I really can't discuss classified military operations, Jake said. But this isn't just military, is it? This affects all of humanity. The people have a right to know. Collins turned to face the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain, Morrison here discovered something incredible. An alien artifact that could change everything for humanity. Jake stood up quickly. I need to go, Danny. This interview is over. But Collins kept talking. The artifact responds to human thoughts, doesn't it, Jake? It's like it was made for us. Like someone out there knew we were coming. Stop, Jake said. His voice was loud enough for the microphones to pick up. You don't understand what you're talking about. This information could put people in danger. What kind of danger? Collins asked. Are you saying there are other aliens out there? Aliens who might not be happy that we found this thing? Jake felt like the walls were closing in. Every word Collins spoke was making things worse. The artifact was more than just a weapon. It was a key to something much bigger and much more dangerous. If the wrong people found out about it, it could mean war for all of humanity. The interview is over, Jake said again. He started walking toward the exit, but Collins followed him with a wireless microphone. Jake, wait. The people deserve to know the truth. If there's something out there that could help humanity, shouldn't we be talking about it? You don't understand. Jake turned around. His face was red with anger. This isn't a game, Danny. This isn't entertainment. There are things in the galaxy that are bigger than us, things that have been sleeping for a long time. And if we wake them up before we're ready, they might decide we're a threat. The studio was completely silent now. Even the cameras kept rolling. Collins looked shocked. He had pushed too hard and now he knew it. What kind of things? Collins asked quietly. Jake realized he had said too much. Way too much. His commanding officer would probably have him court-martialed for this. But the damage was already done. The artifact isn't from the Zephyrians, Jake said. It's older, much older. It was made by a race that disappeared long before humans ever left Earth. And we're not the only ones looking for these things. Security guards were moving toward the stage, now. Jake could see his military escort waiting in the wings. They looked worried. Are you saying there's an ancient alien civilization out there? Collins pressed. I'm saying there used to be, and the races that destroyed them are still around. They've been watching the galaxy for thousands of years, making sure no one gets too powerful, making sure no one finds too many of these artifacts. Jake felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Commander Steve Harrison, his second in command. Sir, we need to go. Now. And they're watching us? Collins asked. Jake looked directly into the camera. 3 billion humans were watching him across the galaxy. He thought about all the colonies, all the families, all the children who would grow up in whatever world his words created tonight. They're always watching, he said. And after tonight, they'll know we found something we weren't supposed to find. The security guard surrounded Jake and led him off the stage. Collins stood alone under the bright lights, holding his microphone. He looked like a man who had just realized he might have started something he couldn't stop. We'll be right back, Collins said to the camera. His voice shook just a little. In space stations and colonies across human territory, people sat in front of their screens. They had just learned that humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and they had learned that being alone might have been safer. The broadcast ended, but the signal kept traveling. It bounced off communication satellites and relay stations. It spread through hyperspace networks and emergency channels. Within hours, every human in the galaxy had heard Captain Jake Morrison's words, but humans weren't the only ones listening. Far, beyond the edge of human space, in a place where stars were different colors and planets followed different rules, something ancient and powerful received the signal. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Confederacy called an emergency session. The humans had found a precursor artifact, and they had been foolish enough to announce it to the galaxy. It was time to pay them a visit. Admiral Lisa Bennett was drinking her morning coffee when the emergency alarm started screaming. Her small apartment on Earth's Luna station shook as the warning lights flashed red. She had been expecting this call for 3 days, ever since Captain Morrison's disastrous television appearance. Admiral Bennett to Command Center, she said into her communication device. Ma'am, you need to get down here right now, came the voice of Lieutenant Tom Parker. We have visitors. Lisa threw on her uniform and ran to the command center. The elevator seemed to take forever. When the doors finally opened, she saw her staff standing around the main display screen with shocked expressions on their faces. Show me, she said. The screen lit up with an image that made Lisa's blood run cold. 12 massive ships hung in space just outside Earth's moon. Each ship was the size of a small city, and they were all different shapes and colors. One looked like it was made of crystal. Another seemed to be alive, with skin that moved like a giant space whale. A third was a perfect black triangle that seemed to absorb light. How long have they been there? Lisa asked. They appeared 20 minutes ago, Lieutenant Parker replied. No warning, no signs on our sensors. 1 second space was empty. The next second they were just there. Have they tried to communicate? Yes, ma'am, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. The message is in perfect English. Lisa's hands were shaking as she reached for the communication. Controls. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything Lisa had ever heard. It sounded like music and mathematics mixed together, but the words were clear. People of Earth, the voice said. We are the Galactic Confederacy. We represent 12 species who have maintained peace in this galaxy for over 2,000 years. We come in response to your recent discovery and public announcement of precursor technology. Lisa looked around the room. Her staff were all watching her, waiting for orders. But what orders could she give? These ships were clearly more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. We require the immediate surrender of all precursor artifacts in your possession, the voice continued. We also require the individual known as Captain Jake Morrison to be handed over for questioning. You have 48 hours to comply. The message ended. The command center was silent except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of air recyclers, ma'am, Lieutenant Parker said quietly. What do we do? Lisa looked at the alien ships on the screen. In all her years of military service, she had never faced anything like this. The Zephyrians had been tough opponents, but they were roughly equal to humans in technology. These ships were clearly from civilizations that were thousands of years ahead of humanity. Get me Captain Morrison, she said, and find out everything we can about these precursor artifacts. 20 minutes later, Lisa was sitting across from Jake Morrison in a secure briefing room deep inside Luna Station. Jake looked tired. He had been in military detention since the television incident, and the stress was showing on his face. Tell me about the artifact, Jake, Lisa said. Tell me everything. Jake rubbed his eyes. It's not just one artifact, Admiral. We found dozens of them on Kepler 442b. The planet was dead, but there were ruins everywhere. Ancient cities, technology. We couldn't understand, and these crystal devices scattered all over the place. What do? They respond to human thoughts. When I touched the first one, it activated. Suddenly I could see things, understand things. It was like having a computer connected directly to my brain. During the battle with the Zephyrians, the artifact helped me predict their moves. It showed me their weak points. Lisa leaned forward. Is that all? Jake shook his head. No, the artifact showed me visions, images of the race that built them. They called themselves the precursors. They were peaceful, advanced, everything humanity hopes to become someday. But something destroyed them. What destroyed them? Other races, younger races that were afraid of the precursors' power. They formed an alliance and wiped out the entire civilization. The precursors tried to hide their technology before they died, hoping that someday a worthy race would find it and use it, for good. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. And you think these aliens outside are the same ones who destroyed the precursors? I think some of them are, Jake said. The artifact showed me glimpses of the war. I saw ships that looked like some of the ones out there now. Before Lisa could respond, Lieutenant Parker's voice came through the intercom. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission. Lisa and Jake hurried back to the command center. The main screen showed a new image. This time it wasn't a ship but a being. The creature was tall and thin with skin that looked like living crystal. Its eyes were large and multifaceted like a diamond. I am Supreme Arbiter Veltar of the Nexari, the being said. I speak for the Galactic Confederacy. We have monitored your recent broadcast and are aware that you have discovered precursor technology. Lisa stepped forward. I am Admiral Lisa Bennett, Commander of Earth's Space Defense. We are prepared to discuss this situation. There is nothing to discuss, Veltar replied. The precursor artifacts are too dangerous to be left in the hands of a young species. We have seen what happens when civilizations acquire this technology before they are ready. Entire star systems have been destroyed. We're not a threat, Lisa said. We're peaceful explorers. That is what they all say. The precursors themselves believed they were peaceful, yet their technology could have enslaved the galaxy if they had chosen to use it that way. Jake stepped beside Lisa. You're the ones who destroyed them, aren't you? You and your Confederacy. You were afraid of what they might become, so you killed them all. Veltar's crystal face showed no emotion. The precursors were eliminated because they refused to limit their expansion. They would not accept the boundaries we established for galactic peace. Their technology was too dangerous to be allowed to spread. And now you want to do the same thing to us, Lisa said. Not necessarily. If you surrender the artifacts and submit to Confederacy oversight, humanity will be allowed to continue existing. You will be given a small sector of space to call your own, and you will never be allowed to expand beyond it. Lisa felt anger rising in her chest. You're talking about making us prisoners in our own galaxy. We are talking about maintaining peace. The Confederacy has prevented galactic war for 2 millennia. We will not allow one species to upset that balance. What if we refuse? Jake asked. Veltar's expression didn't change, but something in his voice became colder. Then you will share the fate of the precursors. Your species will be contained permanently. The transmission ended. Lisa and Jake stood in the command center, surrounded by their staff. Everyone was looking at them, waiting for leadership. Admiral, Lieutenant Parker said, our long-range sensors are picking up more ships. Hundreds of them all heading for Earth. Lisa looked at the display. The 12 ships were just the beginning. An entire armada was coming, and humanity had no way to fight them. But surrendering meant giving up everything that made humanity free. Get me a secure line to all colony commanders, Lisa said, and find Dr. Amy Carter. If we're going to face this threat, we need to understand these precursor artifacts better. As her staff hurried to follow orders, Lisa looked out at the alien ships. In 48 hours, she would have to make a choice that would determine the future of the human race: surrender their freedom and live as prisoners, or fight against impossible odds and risk extinction. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. Jake touched her shoulder. Admiral, there's something else. The artifact is still with me. Even here I can feel it calling. It wants to show me more. Lisa turned to look at him. What kind of more? I think it wants to show me how to fight back. The alien transport ship was unlike anything Jake Morrison had ever seen. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsing with soft blue light. He sat between Admiral Bennett and Dr. Amy Carter, trying not to show how nervous he felt. They were traveling to Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Confederacy, for what the aliens called a species trial. Dr. Carter was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent her entire career studying ancient civilizations, but nothing had prepared her for this. She held a tablet filled with research about the precursor artifacts, though Jake wondered if any of it would help them now. How long until we arrive? Admiral Bennett asked their escort, a tall blue-skinned alien who called himself Commander Zeth. 2 more hours in your time measurement, Zeth replied. His voice sounded like wind blowing through metal pipes. Use this time to prepare. The Arbiters do not show mercy to unprepared species. Jake closed his eyes and tried to connect with the precursor artifact hidden in his jacket pocket. The Confederacy had searched them before boarding, but the small crystal device looked like an ordinary rock to their scanners. Only Jake could feel its power humming beneath the surface. When he touched the artifact, images flashed through his mind. He saw the precursors as they once were, tall, graceful beings with golden skin and eyes like stars. They had built beautiful cities that floated in space, connected by bridges of pure energy. Their technology was so advanced it seemed like magic, but then came darker images, warships filling the sky, cities burning. The precursors fighting desperately against an alliance of younger races who feared their power. Jake saw the final battle, where the last precursor stronghold fell to overwhelming numbers. Jake, Dr. Carter whispered, are you seeing it again? Jake opened his eyes. They were betrayed. The precursors tried to share their knowledge peacefully, but the other races thought it was a trick. They believed the precursors wanted to control them. Maybe they did, Admiral Bennett said quietly. Power like that could corrupt anyone. No, Jake said firmly. The artifact shows me their memories. They were genuinely trying to help. They saw what the galaxy could become if everyone worked together. The transport ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Through the transparent walls, they could see Nexus Prime below them. The planet was a marvel of engineering. Artificial, continents floating in a sea of clouds connected by massive towers that reached into space. Impressive, Dr. Carter said. They've transformed an entire world into a single city. A city built on the graves of the precursors, Jake muttered. Commander Zeth led them through corridors filled with beings from a dozen different species. Jake saw creatures that looked like walking trees, others that floated in bubbles of liquid, and some that appeared to be made of living metal. All of them stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. The tribunal chamber was enormous. 12 thrones arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different type of alien. In the center was a small platform where Jake, Admiral Bennett, and Dr. Carter were told to stand. Supreme Arbiter Veltar materialized on the largest throne, his crystal body catching the light from above. The other arbiters appeared one by one, being so strange that Jake had trouble understanding what he was looking at. The species known as humanity stands accused of illegal possession and activation of precursor technology, Veltar announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. How do you answer these charges? Admiral Bennett stepped forward. We were not aware that studying ancient artifacts was illegal. Our exploration of Kepler 442b was conducted according to standard scientific protocols. A new voice spoke from one of the thrones. It belonged to a creature that looked like a massive insect with rainbow-colored wings. Ignorance is not a defense. Every species in this galaxy knows the law regarding precursor technology. We're new to this galaxy, Dr. Carter said. Humanity has only been exploring space for a few hundred years. We had no way of knowing about your laws. That makes you more dangerous, not less, said another arbiter. This one appeared to be made of flowing liquid that constantly changed colors. Young species are unpredictable. They take risks that endanger everyone. Jake felt the artifact in his pocket growing warm. Images were flooding his mind faster now. He saw the trial of another species, long ago. They had also found precursor technology, and they had also pleaded ignorance. The Confederacy had destroyed their entire civilization as an example to others. You destroyed the Altarians, Jake said suddenly. Everyone in the chamber turned to look at him. 5,000 years ago, they found a precursor communication device and tried to use it to contact other worlds. You wiped out their entire species. Veltar's crystal face showed surprise. How could you possibly know about the Altarians? Jake pulled the artifact from his pocket. It was glowing now, bright enough to illuminate the entire chamber. Several of the arbiters moved back in their thrones. The precursors recorded everything, Jake said. Every conversation, every decision, every betrayal. They knew you would hunt down anyone who found their technology, so they hid the truth in the artifacts themselves. The artifact pulsed, and suddenly the air above the platform filled with images. Everyone in the chamber could see them. The history of the galaxy as the precursors had experienced it. They saw the early days, when the precursors had been just one species among many. They had developed faster than light travel and begun exploring the galaxy, sharing their discoveries with anyone they met. For thousands of years, they had helped younger races develop their own civilizations. But as the precursors grew more advanced, other species became jealous. They formed secret alliances and began spreading lies about precursor intentions. Fear replaced gratitude, and cooperation turned into suspicion. This is precursor propaganda, one of the arbiters said. They are trying to justify their quest for galactic domination. But the images continued. The precursors had seen what was coming and tried to prevent it. They had offered to share all their technology freely, hoping to prove their peaceful intentions. The other species had pretended to accept while secretly preparing for war. Jake watched the final betrayal, the moment when the Confederacy's ancestors had attacked during a peace conference. The precursors had been completely unprepared. They had actually dismantled their weapons as a gesture of trust. You didn't just defeat them, Dr. Carter said, her voice filled with horror. You slaughtered them while they were defenseless. We did what was necessary for galactic peace, Veltar replied, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. The images shifted, showing the aftermath of the war. The Confederacy had built their new order on precursor ruins, claiming to be guardians of peace while systematically eliminating any species that showed too much potential. How many? Admiral Bennett asked. How many species have you destroyed? 17 confirmed extinctions, Jake said, reading the information flowing from the artifact. Hundreds of others restricted to single worlds or small sectors. You've turned the galaxy into a prison. The artifact pulsed again, and this time the images showed something new. Hidden precursor facilities scattered across the galaxy, waiting to be activated by someone worthy. Weapons that could challenge the Confederacy's power. Ships that could travel instantly between stars. Technology that could transform humanity into something greater. Now you understand why precursor technology must be controlled, Veltar said. In the wrong hands, it could destroy everything we have built. Or it could free everyone you've enslaved, Jake replied. The artifact was singing now, a sound that seemed to come from inside Jake's head. He could feel it connecting to other artifacts across the galaxy, awakening systems that had slept for millennia. For the first time since the precursor's fall, their network was coming back to life. "Stop him!" one of the arbiters shouted. But it was too late. The artifact had found what it was looking for. Other humans who had encountered precursor technology without knowing what it was. Colony scientists who had studied strange crystals. Explorers who had found ancient ruins. Soldiers who had touched mysterious devices. All across human space, the artifacts were awakening, and they were all connecting to Jake Morrison, standing in the heart of the Confederacy's power. "The trial is over," Jake said. His voice carried new authority, enhanced by the artifact's power. "Humanity claims its inheritance. We are the children of the precursors, and we will not be caged." Jake Morrison collapsed to his knees on the tribunal platform. The artifact in his hand was blazing with light so bright that even the alien arbiters had to shield their eyes. Energy coursed through his body like electricity, changing him in ways he couldn't understand. "What's happening to him?" Admiral Bennett shouted over the noise. The artifact was making a sound like singing mixed with electronic static. Dr. Carter was scanning Jake with her medical device. "His brain activity is off the charts. It's like the artifact is rewriting his neural pathways." Through the chaos, Jake could hear Supreme Arbiter Veltar giving orders. "Seal the chamber, do not let them escape." But Jake wasn't listening to the aliens anymore. He was seeing something incredible. Images flowed through his mind, showing him the truth that had been hidden for millions of years. Earth wasn't just another planet in the galaxy. It was special. It was home. "Admiral," Jake gasped, struggling to his feet. "Earth was a precursor, colony world. Humans didn't evolve naturally, we were created by them." The revelation hit everyone in the chamber like a shockwave. Even the arbiters stopped their shouting and stared at Jake. "Impossible," Veltar said. "We scanned your planet thoroughly before first contact. There are no precursor ruins on Earth." Jake smiled, even though his whole body was shaking from the artifact's energy. "They hid them, deep underground, under the oceans, in places you would never think to look. They knew someone would come looking for their technology, so they made Earth appear ordinary." Dr. Carter was staring at her tablet in amazement. "Jake, this explains everything. The gaps in human evolutionary history. Why our DNA has sequences that don't match any other Earth species. Why humans are so adaptable compared to other mammals." The artifact pulsed again, and suddenly Jake could see the galaxy as the precursors had seen it. He understood their plan now. When they realized they were going to lose the war, they had hidden their most precious creation, not technology, but life itself. They had scattered modified humans across dozens of worlds, hoping that someday their children would reclaim their heritage. "There are other human colonies," Jake said. "Worlds that were seeded by the precursors but lost contact with Earth. Some of them have been developing precursor abilities for thousands of years." One of the arbiters, a creature that looked like a giant spider made of silver, spoke up. "Even if this is true, it changes nothing. You are still a young species. You cannot be trusted with precursor power." "Can't we?" Jake asked. He reached out with his mind, using the artifact to connect with something far away. Seconds later, alarms started going off throughout the tribunal chamber. Through the transparent walls, they could see ships appearing in Nexus Prime's orbit. Human ships, but they looked different now. Their hulls glowed with the same energy as Jake's artifact. Weapons that had never existed before extended from their sides. "Impossible," Veltar said. "How did your fleet find this location? Nexus Prime's coordinates are a closely guarded secret," Jake laughed. "We didn't need coordinates. The precursor network connects everything, every artifact, every enhanced human, every ship that's been touched by their technology. We can travel anywhere in the galaxy instantly." Admiral Bennett was, watching the display screens in amazement. She recognized some of the ships. They were from the Earth Defense Fleet, but others were completely unknown. Sleek vessels with designs that seemed to blend human engineering with something far more advanced. "Commander Harrison to Admiral Bennett," came a voice through the communication system. "We're in position. The entire Confederacy fleet is surrounding us, but they're not attacking. I think they're afraid of what we might do." Jake closed his eyes and reached out through the network. He could sense other humans across the galaxy, people who had been changed by contact with precursor artifacts. Scientists on research stations who had found crystal formations, miners who had discovered strange metal alloys, colonists who had built their settlements on ancient precursor sites. All of them were awakening to their true heritage. On the mining world of Beta Centauri, a worker named Rick Johnson touched a glowing stone and suddenly understood how to build a faster-than-light engine using nothing but basic materials. On the research station orbiting Proxima b, scientist Linda Morgan discovered that the crystal samples she had been studying could create unlimited clean energy. Across human space, ordinary people were becoming extraordinary. "You're accelerating their evolution," Dr. Carter said, watching the readings on her devices. "The artifacts aren't just giving humans technology, they're unlocking genetic potential that was always there." Jake nodded. The precursors didn't just want to preserve their knowledge, they wanted to preserve their children. Humans are what the precursors were supposed to become. Not conquerors, but explorers. Not rulers, but teachers. Veltar stepped down from his throne. For the first time since the trial began, the crystal being looked uncertain. If this is true, if humans truly are precursor descendants, then by galactic law you have a legitimate claim to their technology. "More than a claim," Jake said. "We have a responsibility. The precursors created us to finish what they started, to bring peace to the galaxy, not through force, but through understanding." The artifact in Jake's hand suddenly went dark. The energy that had been coursing through the chamber faded away. But Jake could still feel the network humming in the back of his mind, connecting him to humans across the galaxy. "The demonstration is over," he said. "Now you have a choice to make. You can continue trying to cage us, and we'll show you what precursor weapons can really do. Or you can work with us to build something better." One of the arbiters, a being that looked like a living flame, spoke up. "What are you proposing?" "Disband the Confederacy," Admiral Bennett said, stepping forward. "And the restrictions on planetary development. Let species grow and explore freely." "That would mean chaos," another arbiter protested. "War, expansion conflicts, resource disputes." "Or it would mean progress," Dr. Carter said. "The precursors believed that different species working together could achieve things that none of them could accomplish alone. That's why they shared their knowledge freely." Jake felt movement through the network. Ships were arriving at Nexus Prime from all across the galaxy. Not just human ships, but vessels from species that had been restricted by the Confederacy for centuries. Word of the trial was spreading, and oppressed civilizations were finally seeing hope. "You have allies you didn't know about," Jake told the arbiters. "Species that remember what life was like before the Confederacy. They've been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge your authority." Through the chamber's walls they could see the growing fleet, hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all united by a common desire for freedom. The Confederacy's forces were vastly outnumbered. Veltar looked around at his fellow arbiters. The crystal being's confidence was completely gone now. "This is not how we expected this trial to proceed. Trials are supposed to reveal the truth," Jake said. "Now you know the truth. Humans aren't just another young species to be controlled. We're the children of the people you destroyed, and we're not going to make the same mistakes they did." The artifact in Jake's pocket began to glow softly again. But this time, instead of showing images of the past, it was showing visions of the future. A galaxy where species work together freely, worlds transformed by cooperation instead of competition. Technology shared openly instead of hoarded by the powerful. "This is what the precursors wanted," Jake said. "This is what they died for. And this is what we're going to build, with or without your help." The alarm bells were screaming across Nexus Prime when General Torvak made his decision. The massive Korath warrior stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the growing fleet of rebel ships through the main viewing screen. His red eyes burned with anger as he counted the vessels. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all united against Confederacy rule. "Sir," his aide reported, "Supreme Arbiter Veltar is ordering us to hold position. The trial is still in progress." Torvak's clawed hand crushed the arm of his command chair. "The trial is over. These humans have shown their true nature. They are exactly like the precursors, spreading lies and gathering followers to challenge the natural order." On the planet below, Jake Morrison felt a cold shiver run through the precursor network. Something was wrong. The artifact in his pocket grew warm, showing him images of Korath warships powering up their weapons. "Admiral," Jake said urgently, "we need to get out of here now." Admiral Bennett looked confused. "What's happening?" "General Torvak isn't waiting for orders. He's going to attack the fleet." Supreme Arbiter Veltar heard Jake's words and his crystal face showed alarm. "That is not possible. All military actions require approval from the full tribunal." But Jake was already reaching out through the network, trying to warn the human ships in orbit. He could feel Commander Harrison on the flagship, preparing for negotiations. The human fleet was spread out in a peaceful formation, not ready for battle. "Steve," Jake sent through the mental connection, "get the ships into defensive positions. The Korath are going to attack." High above the planet, Commander Steve Harrison felt Jake's warning like a voice in his head. He had experienced the network connection before, but it still felt strange to hear thoughts from someone thousands of miles away. "All ships, this is Harrison," he broadcast to the fleet. "Take defensive positions immediately. Prepare for combat." The human ships began moving, their precursor-enhanced engines glowing brighter. But they weren't fast enough. Torvak's flagship opened fire, sending massive energy beams toward the closest human vessel. The beam should have destroyed the ship instantly. Instead, it struck a shimmering barrier that appeared around the vessel's hull. The precursor shields held, but barely. "Return fire," Harrison ordered. The human ships unleashed weapons that no one had seen before. Beams of pure energy that could cut through the strongest armor. Missiles that changed direction in mid-flight to find their targets. Technology that the precursors had hidden for millions of years, now awakened by human determination. But the Confederacy fleet was enormous. For every human ship, there were 10 alien vessels. Even with precursor technology, the odds were terrible. Down, in the tribunal chamber, the fighting was starting to affect the planet itself. The building shook as energy weapons fired overhead. Several of the arbiters were shouting orders to their species' fleets, while others demanded that Torvak stop the attack. "This is madness," Veltar said. "General Torvak is violating every law of the Confederacy." Jake closed his eyes and reached deeper into the network than he had ever gone before. He could feel precursor facilities across the galaxy responding to his call, ancient weapons platforms that had been sleeping in asteroid fields, shipyards hidden inside dead stars, technology so advanced that even the precursors had been afraid to use it. "No," Dr. Carter said, watching her medical scanner. "Jake, your brain can't handle that much input. You'll burn out your neural pathways." But Jake didn't stop. He could see what the precursors had really built, not just weapons or ships, but a network that connected every thinking being in the galaxy. Oh, system that could show people the thoughts and feelings of others, making war impossible because everyone would understand everyone else. "The network isn't just for humans," Jake said. "It's for everyone." The precursors wanted to connect all species, all minds, all hearts. The artifact in his hand blazed with light again, but this time the energy didn't stay contained. It spread outward, touching Admiral Bennett, Dr. Carter, and even some of the alien arbiters. Suddenly, everyone in the chamber could feel what Jake was feeling. They experienced the network as the precursors had intended it, not as a tool for control, but as a bridge between different forms of life. Veltar gasped as human emotions flowed through his crystal consciousness. For the first time in his long life, he understood what fear felt like, what hope meant, what love could do. Other arbiters were having similar experiences. The insect-like being with rainbow wings felt human creativity filling her mind. The liquid creature experienced solid thoughts and linear time. Each alien was learning what it meant to be human, while Jake and the humans felt the vast, complex thoughts of ancient civilizations. This is what the precursors wanted, Jake said. Not conquest, but connection. Not rule, but understanding. High above them, the space battle was turning. The human fleet was fighting desperately, but more Confederacy ships were arriving every minute. Commander Harrison watched as one of his destroyers exploded under heavy fire. Jake, he sent through the network, we can't hold them much longer. Jake felt every death in the battle like a physical blow. Each destroyed ship contained people he could sense through the network, brave humans who had come to fight for freedom. He couldn't let them die for nothing. I'm activating the full network, Jake announced. No, Dr. Carter shouted. That much power will kill you. Jake looked at her with sad eyes. Maybe, but it's the only way to save everyone. He reached out to every precursor facility in the galaxy. Ancient machines that had been waiting millions of years for this moment responded to his call. Power flowed through the network like a river of stars, connecting not just human worlds but every planet, every species, every thinking being in the galaxy. The effect was instant and overwhelming. Across thousands of worlds, people suddenly felt connected to everyone else. The Korath soldiers attacking the human fleet found themselves experiencing human memories of love and friendship. Human pilots felt the ancient wisdom of Nexari crystals. Insectoid workers on distant planets shared thoughts with human farmers. General Torvak, in the middle of ordering another attack, suddenly felt Jake Morrison's mind touching his own. He experienced Jake's memories of growing up on Earth, of choosing to become a soldier to protect people, of discovering the precursor's peaceful message. What is this? Torvak roared, but his voice was shaking. This is what the galaxy could be. Jake's voice came through the network. Everyone connected, everyone understanding each other. No more war, no more fear, no more loneliness. The Korath general felt emotions he had never experienced before. Compassion, empathy, the desire to protect instead of destroy. Around him, his bridge crew was going through the same transformation. All across the galaxy, the same thing was happening. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years suddenly understood each other's perspectives. Soldiers put down their weapons. Politicians started talking instead of fighting. Children of different races played together as if they had always been friends. The space battle above Nexus Prime came to a complete stop. Ships that had been firing at each other moments before now floated peacefully side by side. Jake Morrison stood in the tribunal chamber, his body glowing with precursor energy. He could feel the minds of billions of beings across the galaxy, all connected through the network he had activated. This is the precursor's true gift, he said. Not technology, but unity. Not power, but peace. Then he collapsed, the strain of connecting an entire galaxy proving too much for one human mind to bear. 3 days later, Jake Morrison opened his eyes in a medical bay aboard a human ship. The walls were white and clean, and gentle music was playing from hidden speakers. He tried to sit up, but his body felt different. Stronger somehow, but also changed in ways he couldn't understand. Easy there, hero, Admiral Bennett said from a chair beside his bed. She looked tired but happy. You've been unconscious for 3 days. Dr. Carter wasn't sure you were going to wake up. Jake looked around the room. Through the window, he could see Nexus Prime floating peacefully below them. But something was different about the planet. Instead of the cold, formal structures he remembered, the cities now glowed with warm, colorful lights. What happened? Jake asked. Did it work? Admiral Bennett smiled. See for yourself. She handed him a tablet showing news broadcasts from across the galaxy. Jake watched in amazement as the reports came in. On the Korath homeworld, General 2, Torvak had announced the end of their military expansion. He was now working with former enemies to turn weapon factories into schools. On the insect worlds of the Nexari, workers who had spent their lives following orders were now expressing individual creativity for the first time. Their hives were becoming centers of art and music instead of just production. Even the liquid beings of Aquarius Prime were changing. They had always lived alone in their vast oceans, but now they were reaching out to other species, sharing their ancient wisdom about patience and adaptation. The network connection changed everyone, Admiral Bennett explained. When people could feel what others were thinking and feeling, it became impossible to hate them. Wars are ending everywhere. Species that have been enemies for thousands of years are now working together. Jake tried to process what he was hearing. All of them? Not all, Admiral Bennett admitted. Some individuals couldn't handle the change. They've isolated themselves on distant worlds. But they're a tiny minority. Most beings in the galaxy have embraced the connection. Dr. Carter entered the medical bay carrying a cup of coffee and a stack of research papers. She looked excited, in a way Jake had never seen before. Jake, you're awake. Do you know what you've done? You've created the first truly peaceful galactic civilization in recorded history. Jake sat up carefully. What about the Confederacy? Are they still trying to control everyone? The Confederacy dissolved itself yesterday, Admiral Bennett said. Veltar and the other arbiters realized that their system was based on fear and control. They voted to disband and form something new. She activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy. Instead of the rigid boundaries that had existed under Confederacy rule, Jake saw flowing networks connecting thousands of worlds. It's called the Galactic Fellowship, Dr. Carter explained. Every species has equal representation. Decisions are made through consensus, with the network helping people understand different perspectives. Jake felt a familiar warmth in his pocket. The precursor artifact was still there, but it felt different now. Calmer, more complete. Can I still connect to the network? He asked. Try it, Admiral Bennett said. Jake closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. Instantly, he felt the presence of billions of beings across the galaxy. But instead of the overwhelming flood of consciousness he had experienced before, the connection was gentle and controlled. He could sense the emotions and thoughts of others, without being overwhelmed by them. He felt Commander Harrison on the bridge, proudly watching human and alien crews working side by side. He sensed Dr. Carter's excitement as she studied precursor ruins that were now being freely shared between species. He even felt General Torvak on his homeworld, experiencing peace for the first time in his violent life. It's beautiful, Jake whispered. But the most amazing thing was what he felt from Earth. The network had reached humanity's homeworld, and people there were discovering abilities they never knew they had. Artists were creating works that spoke to alien minds. Scientists were solving problems by thinking in completely new ways. Children were learning to communicate with beings from across the galaxy. There's something else, Admiral Bennett said. The Fellowship voted to make you the first human arbiter. You would be humanity's representative and the guardian of the precursor network. Jake thought about that. The idea of such responsibility was frightening, but he could feel through the network that people trusted him. More importantly, he could sense the wisdom of the precursors themselves, still present in the artifacts scattered across the galaxy. What about you, Admiral? Jake asked. I've been asked to lead the new Galactic Defense Force, she replied, not to enforce control like the old Confederacy, but to protect the network and help species that are still learning to use it safely. Dr. Carter held up her research papers. And I'm heading the Institute for Precursor Studies. We're not just studying their technology anymore. We're learning from their philosophy. They left us more than just tools. They left us a blueprint for peace. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Below them, Nexus Prime was transforming before his eyes. The cold, authoritarian architecture was being replaced by flowing, organic structures that reflected the diversity of the species working together to build them. What about Danny Collins? Jake asked. The talk show host who started all this. Admiral, Bennett laughed. He's become the most famous journalist in the galaxy. His show is now broadcast to every world in the Fellowship. He calls it The Morning Connection. Yesterday he interviewed a precursor artifact directly. Apparently they can communicate now that the network is fully active. Jake smiled at that. The thought that a simple television interview had led to the transformation of an entire galaxy still seemed impossible. There's one more thing, Dr. Carter said. The network isn't finished growing. We're detecting signals from beyond our galaxy. The precursors apparently seeded other regions of space too. Someday we might be able to connect with civilizations in distant galaxies. Jake felt a sense of infinite possibility stretching out before them. The precursors had given humanity more than just their technology. They had given them a purpose: to spread understanding and connection throughout the universe, bringing peace to places that had never known it. When do we start? He asked. Admiral Bennett smiled. We already have. The Fellowship's first joint expedition launches next week. Human and alien crews working together to explore the unknown regions beyond our galaxy. And Jake, they want you to lead it. Jake looked out at the stars beyond Nexus Prime. Somewhere out there were other civilizations, other species struggling with the same problems that had plagued his galaxy for millennia. The precursor network could help them too, but only if someone was brave enough to make contact. All right, Jake said. But this time we do things differently. No secrets, no hidden agendas. Just honest communication between thinking beings who want to build something better. Through the network, he felt agreement from across the galaxy. Billions of minds united in the same goal: to spread the gift the precursors had given them to every corner of the universe. Jake Morrison had started as a simple starship captain whose only goal was to protect human colonies. Now he was something much more. The guardian of galactic peace and the bearer of humanity's greatest responsibility. And it had all begun with a heated argument on a late-night talk show. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what the precursors had hoped for.